49 weeks to Madiera. Welcome back to the Videos Diary. I've been really looking forward to recording this week, and we're again walking back on Thursday night from athletics training at the University of Norwich, or University of East Anglia sports facilities. So what's been going on this week? A big talking point from the last week is I've finally been able to do some goal setting and solidify exactly where I'm going for the next year. So I'll talk a wee bit more about that and update on how the body's feeling and on how the training went tonight, and a wee bit on injuries as well. But yeah, just had a really good morning, good moment on Tuesday there. I was over at the gym for the first time. I needed to wait around for an hour before I could do an induction for the gym, before I could use the gym for the first time. Sitting in the cafe, and it was just in the morning, sun was shining. I was looking right up the 100-metre track with a nice unhealthy breakfast, and it was just the perfect time to sit and think through my goals and to work out exactly what I'm aiming for in this road to Madiera, to the European Masters Athletics Championships in October 2025. So yeah, I was just sitting there starting to think through, what's actually achievable but also realistic. So you've got your SMART goals. Goals need to be SMART, so specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound, or within a certain time scale. And I was listening the previous night to Dave Ramsey, who was talking about goal setting and the importance of having a goal that you feel you couldn't just walk into it. You'd really have to push for it. A BHAG, a big a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. So something that really lights your fire, maybe even makes you a little bit scared, but also something that is actually within your competence or within the realms of possibility. And he uses the analogy of this dog, that if you put the toy way too high for the dog, it'll be like, nah, I'm not going to go for that. Or if you put it too low, it'll maybe grab it a couple of times and then it'll walk away. But if you put it just right, then the dog will jump all day. And I need to set the toy up for this year. And really, 6 weeks into my move to Norwich and 4 weeks into this year-long trainer, it's time to solidify some of that. So I've never been an elite athlete. I've only previously competed at university level, and although I have run in national championships, these have been open championships where you don't need to qualify for them. So that I've never been as part of a team that's travelling overseas. I've never been selected for a team other than at university level. And a really, really helpful framework, because I was looking for something to try and say, well, if I'm not going to be an elite athlete, then what can I aim for? And these days there just doesn't seem to be any halfway house between kind of being one of these runner types and doing the park run, and posting your new 5k time on Strava on Facebook, and that friend you knew from school that went all the way and did became a world beater. So I was reading this article in the International Journal of Physiology and Performance, which I can post in this video, that was talking about the 5 levels of sport, of sports development or of training. So first of all, you've got level 1, and that's just anyone that's generally basically active, that they're basically just not unhealthy. They meet the World Health Organization minimum requirements. Anything below that, you're essentially sedentary. So they're maybe walking around, cycling around. They're basically being active, but they aren't really training as such. They wouldn't consider themselves as a sports person. Then you've got the trained or developmental athletes. So this would be 12 to 19% of the population. This is the second tier. And they would be training 3 times a week. They're doing something that's sport specific, so they could tell you what their sport was. Now, again, it might be something like CrossFit or bodybuilding or something that is still quite general. But they also would be competing, so they would actually be moving towards some sort of measurable outcome. And again, that could be in a team sport where you're just having a match, or you're going to some sort of CrossFit competition or something like that. So really, that's that would include high school athletes as well, that maybe train a few times a week and for a particular sport. And that's where I've spent maybe most of my sports life. Then the next tier up, interestingly, there is a tier before you get to elite, and that's the highly trained athlete. This is defined as someone who's training not just sport specific, but they're doing a periodised programme. So they're across the year they're going to be doing different things, and there's a different progression within that, and they have different focus across the year. They're competing at a national or international level. They're maybe not winning at an international or a national level, but they would also be training specific a specific skill. So they're not just training for the sport, but they're doing some baseline training that's specific to that sport. So what would be a good example? Like, so if you were a basketball player, you'd be doing like weight drills with like weighted basketball or something like that. So you're doing specific training. Now this is only 0.014% of the population, and they wouldn't be going to the Olympics. They wouldn't be, a first player team, but they might be like in a reserve team or maybe a lower league. They'd probably be training 5 times a week, and essentially the hard definition of it is: are you actually competing at a national or international level? And that's where I want to get to as this tier 3. Beyond that, you've got tier 4, where you're essentially you'd be considered an elite athlete. That's 0.002% of the population, and these are the guys that would be going to the Olympics, or they'd be selected for an international team or something like that, and they're kind of sold out. But yeah, within this, and then beyond that, you get world class tier 5, where there's only a few of you in the world, and you're perhaps a household name, and but yeah, the elite athletes means that there's not really much more training you could do. They're kind of training maximally. So yeah, I want to be a tier 3 athlete. So, and the ultimate benchmark of this is to be in competition. So I've got some options at a national level. So some of the options would be doing the Masters, but actually progressing through the rounds, like or the Scottish Championships or something like that, where I would actually it's not just that's an open competition, anyone can turn up, and you turn up and you say, oh, I went to a national meeting. That wouldn't count. You would have to either go to a national meeting like the English athletics meeting, where you have to get a qualification standard and therefore an invite. That would count. Or you would go to like a Scottish Open or something like that, but then actually progress within that. So that's a really high standard, because there's only few enough people that could actually make that. I've got several options about how I could do that, and the fact I'd be a Masters athlete opens up a lot more, but that's really where we're going with this this year. I think I would really have to get back to PB standard in the 100 or 200 metres, or I'd have to do like a whole new discipline like the decathlon. So for the next 3 months, I've set my kind of quarterly standards to help me to move towards that. The first one is to complete this big man on campus trainer that I've talked about by the end of January, to establish just a baseline of muscle that I can work with for the rest of the year. The second one would be to have 2 separate trials of each decathlon event. So I had my second one of the javelin tonight. That went really well. I threw about 25 yards compared to last week when it was more like 15 yards. And yeah, I developed some technique, and I can see actually no, I can actually move forward in this. So that's going to be crucial over the next 10 weeks. Can I actually not only try out each of these disciplines, but try them out twice and see, did I actually improve from one to the next? Is there actually potential for progression, or did I try it out and I kind of hit a stumbling block and I came back and I hit the same stumbling block? That's also pretty good data. So that's the second goal. The first one was just complete this trainer. The second one was, again, to try these things out. And that was another thing that I read, was it's really important to set goals for your training as well as competition. Because competition can be a bit more, just a bit more far off in the future. Like I don't know when my first competition is going to be. It's hard to have this goal in sight. But also sometimes competition can be hit and miss. You might get injured right before and you automatically lose your goal. So I've got some goals that are quite ambitious, but I do think I can achieve them, but just require a bit of planning, and I'm creating a kind of time sensitive or a time bound boundary essentially. So the third one is actually to run the British Masters Athletics merit standard in the 200 metres and the 60 without injury by the end of January. So yeah, that's pretty specific and time bound. I think it's pretty achievable. It's certainly measurable, and I think it's realistic as well. So these are basic times that you would have to run in order to be eligible for a medal within a Masters Championships. They're not very ambitious, but you couldn't just run up with no training. You would have to be having a basic level of conditioning. So that just means I'm in the right ballpark, I'm in the right zone, and yeah, it's just a really concrete time that I can put under my belt. So those are my 3 goals. One of them's to do with the baseline strength. One of them's to do with my general conditioning, which is the decathlon, and then the third is just a very specific all-out sprint time trial. So I'm really energised for these goals. I just think I've had this on my mind the last few days. I'm thinking it through. The guys are still playing American football every week. Good on them. Yeah, there's just nothing quite so energising as actually sitting and doing goals. And I know that goal setting can be really, it can seem quite twee for some people, and some people get very into the theory of it. But as I was sitting there in that cafe, there's obviously some sort of sports scholar program, and there was these young students that were coming in, and they were talking to this mentor, and I kind of caught snippets of the conversation over my headphones, and they were saying, right, well, how are you going to balance this with your studies? There's a wheel diagram, how's this fitting in with the rest of the sectors or the segments of your life? And yeah, it's just so important to sit down at the start of the year and actually some good energy here. Actually set a vision that just catalyses everything else. So I went way over on this this diary tonight. Tonight just did a bit of javelin to begin with. I was late out of work. I'm probably late out every second Thursday, so that's something that we're going to have to work around. Then I went and done 3 70-metre sprints. That was feeling quite good. And then I finally finished with some hurdle drills as well, because hurdles is something again I need to go back to if I'm exploring the decathlon. Yeah, pulled my shoulder slightly, got a bit of a niggle in my right Achilles. Was feeling a bit flat on the hurdles, so my body's just telling me I think you need to rest up. So next week we're going to be taking a bit of a deload week, bit less intensity. I'm going to be away on holiday during the week, so I'll come back and I'll update the diary on Saturday, where we're going to try some pole vault, which is just really going to be the litmus test for the decathlon, and yeah, just allow my body to recover. I've been a bit worn out, stretching myself at work, not sleeping fantastic, so yeah, that's what's the plan for the next while. There's other goals I've set in there that I've not talked about here that we'll come to later. I've also just got some carrots in there of things that I'd really quite like to do. Maybe some of the strength goals, or Olympic lifting, or like body leanness that you can really measure, that I've kind of had in my mind for a while, but it's been hard to work towards that. So I've got goals that I'm not going for yet that I'm going to do a bit later. So yeah, peace out, talk next week, and yeah, we'll see you back on the road to Madiera.